class or they're going to be absent and stuff like that. So you can rely on someone else's notes, but you can take your own notes by you just watch the YouTube video when I upload it. Okay, so make sure that that's recording. It is. All righty. Good to see you all. Today I'm going to go over the syllabus briefly. I'm going to spend like the first, well, hopefully 20, 25 minutes on the syllabus, just going over the bare bones syllabus, and then I'm going to get into the first lecture. But as if you've been checking your emails, you've seen I've already sent out a PDF copy of the syllabus. Okay, so you've got a copy already. All right, print it out or put it on your computer or whatever. There's also a copy on Canvas that you should have been able to see for the last few days. Okay, I just copied and pasted a copy on there. All right, but you want to go to the PDF. And yeah, it's like 50-some pages, around 50 pages. That's just the nature of the beast. All right, if you have a cell phone. All right, it's the nature of the beast. And I also know from my own experience, they say do you read click here to say that you've read the terms in the. Well, no, to be honest, I'm a Christian faith teacher, I'm a Christian man. I can't lie. So I do look at it. I look at some of the terms that I'm interested in, and then I can click OK. Morally, I feel like I can click OK. I'm not just saying you did look, but I know that, in the past I've not looked. Of course, when you need something, right, you look when there's a problem, with your phone or your plan. And then you find out that you signed out away all your rights to a jury trial and stuff like that. You have to do arbitration. That nice. You don't know that because you didn't read it, right? Until there was a problem. You waived your rights. Anyways, the same thing with the syllabus, okay? When you come to me with a question about the course, okay, my first question, not Walker. Walker? All right, good. So that's coming in this one. My first question, Mr. Walker, is going to be, what does the syllabus say? Okay, because that's why it's so long, because I try to think about just every problem or issue and problems of issues that have come up in the past, and I address it in the syllabus. Okay, most things are addressed. If you can answer the question and say, well, the syllabus says this, well, you got your answer. Right? If you don't know, what am I going to say? If I say, well, what does the syllabus say? When is quiz number 1 going to be due, or how long do we have to take it? Right? And I say, well, what does the syllabus say? And you don't know. Well, I don't know. What's my next question going to be? Or what am I going to say? I should say. It's not a question. What am I going to say? What would you say? What would you say? Yeah, read the syllabus. Yeah, it's around 50 pages. So this is like your first reading for the course. Yeah. You don't have to read all of it. You obviously, be clever, all right? You read the major stuff you need to know, all right, which I'm going to go over. The other stuff that you don't need to know, you can see, okay, does Title IX apply to me? No, move on, all right? Am I an athlete who might be absent from some classes? No, move on, all right? But grading elements, like how I'm going to grade you, what assignments you have to do, and when they're due, that's pretty important. I would highlight that, take some notes, write stuff down on a calendar just so you know, and then you never have to look at it again, okay? Or if you're like, how do I write the paper for the course? It's all in the syllabus, or mostly in the syllabus. So if, you get a bad grade on a paper or something, or a low grade, let's put it that way, and you're wondering, why'd you grade it that way? Well, what did the syllabus ask you to do? Read the syllabus. It's all going to come back to that. And yes, on the student evaluations at the end of the term, you can flame me, that's fine. I don't care. I don't lose any sleep over it, because I'm telling you right now, read the syllabus. I know it sounds jerky, but I've put a lot of time and effort into it, okay? My hours of effort. So don't just expect me to answer the question because I'm here. Read the syllabus first, all right? Show me that you've read the syllabus. Done that basic task. If you don't want to, if you're like, I'm not going to do it, and I don't like Dr. Dunn, poop on him, add drop. Add drop. That's it. I don't take it personally. All right, it's that's fine. I'm not for everybody. Personalities don't always click. I had professors that I were nice people, but just like I can't do this. I had like one professor who wouldn't let you take any notes in class. He wanted to be like a Socratic dialogue where you just sat around and listened and talked. Okay, that's great for some people. Not for me. That's just not the way I work. I just can't work that way. I need to take notes. So I dropped it. Nothing personal. Okay, so that's fine. Read the syllabus, please. If you ask me a question that's on the syllabus, I'll tell you to read the syllabus first. Then, if you've read the syllabus and I don't address it, Mr. Lee, or it's not clear, it's confusing what I wrote, then be like, yeah, you've shown me you've read the syllabus, and then, okay, we can have a discussion. There's something to talk about. But I'm not just going to spit back the information that's already there. Okay? Okay, let's go over the information, just the basic information for the course. No, it's not world religions. I know that's wrong. But it's one of the open files. Whoops. That's one of the open files, so let's go to the other one. Oh, wait, hold on, there it is. All right. You know the days, Tuesdays and Thursdays. You know the time, apparently, or at least now you do. Now you do. You know where we are, room 22 in Bernard Hall, St. Bernard Hall. You know who I am, hopefully, if you read my email. I'm Matthew Dunn. I don't have an office here, so I don't have any phone that you can call me on. So you're basically, you got to email me. So use, gmercy EU email, please. Okay, Mr. Walker, could I see you at the end of class, please? Yes, Mr. Walker. I just have a question. So that's because that's how I'll be contacting you. I've got you all in my contact list already. So I just shoot out a big email to everybody a lot of times, so it's there. The description of the I know the two computers. Description of the course is taken from the catalog. I did not write the description of the course. Don't know who did. But, I put it here and tweak it a little bit, as I think all professors do. We're examining the features of religious faith common to Christianity, Protestant and Catholic Christianity. All right, there'll be a lot of commonalities. Notice they don't mention Eastern Orthodox Christianity, which is kind of interesting, which they should. Maybe I should add that myself in brackets. Nevertheless, there are a lot of commonalities, but there are a lot of differences. There are a lot of differences between the two versions of Christianity. Basic Christian beliefs will be discussed. Characteristics of adult faith development. I have no idea what that means. I'm just going to be honest with you. I mean, I know what faith development is. Catechesis, and, I have to you teach children a different way than you teach adults, or you teach young adults in a different way than you teach children. Okay, that's for like if we're getting a certificate in catechism or something, you're gonna whatever. But I don't know what the person who wrote this means by that. So that's not going to happen. All right, just to let you know. But I mean, I might touch on it when I talk about faith issues, how doctrines and teachings and beliefs impinge on or impact practice, how people act and stuff like that, or what they believe and how they grow. So I guess maybe I shouldn't say I won't talk about it. I do talk about it in various ways, but I don't think I'm specific about it. But anyways, it's there. Commitment to one's Christian faith in a contemporary world. Okay, again, see my comments about adult faith development, are treated in ecumenically sensitive manner. Okay, ecumenically sensitive. Well, if you don't know what the word ecumenical means, well, we will know what it means after this class. It means universal. But they're using it specifically here in a very specific sense of different Christian groups kind of coming together in cooperation and dialogue and understanding and stuff like that. So I'll be ecumenically sensitive. I'll try to be. I'm not going out of my way to like dump on people or insult anybody. Obviously, I mean, I would hope you would, assume that about me. But as I put this note that we are at a Catholic university founded by an order of Roman Catholic sisters. It claims to be a Catholic university on the website, in the catalog, and the literature. I am a Catholic theologian, and so primarily I'm going to be teaching from the Catholic perspective. But I do know other perspectives. I know some Protestant perspectives, because Protestantism is a very broad thing, So I don't know everything, but I have a direct experience with it. I'm also Eastern Catholic, Byzantine. So I have experience with Eastern Orthodoxy, which, as I said, is not mentioned. So I will include those and mention when there are differences and talk about the reasons why Protestants accept such and such or reject such and such, or Eastern Orthodox accept this but don't accept that, or Catholics accept it. Okay, you get my point. All right, so that's my version, I guess, of being ecumenically sensitive. But my main focus is going to be Catholicism, because, it's kind of like, when you go to a delicatessen, you got to choose something, do you want the Swiss or well, I guess you could take both the Swiss and the Havarti and put them together on a sandwich. It'd be very nice. Swiss, Havarti, Gouda. But not here, sir. I'm going to make a choice. The choice I'm comfortable with. Again, just so you know. Okay, so information on the course. The books for the course, those should be available to you on the bookstore website, and so they should be available to you. The New American Bible Revised Edition, that's a Catholic translation of the Bible, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and then any and all materials that I might assign, which I probably won't assign. That's in case I have any extra readings that I might say, hey, take a look at this or something, but I probably almost certainly won't do that to you. Almost all the readings, I think, come from just the Bible and the Catechism. I think that's enough for an introductory course, okay? If this were a deeper course, then we go deeper, delve deeper. But I think that most people's knowledge of Christianity, even if they say they're Christian, is very limited, very slim, very slender, almost non-existent. Even if you went to Catholic school for 12 years. Which I did not. I went to Catholic school for half, and I went to public school for the rest. But just in my experience, a lot, and that's just in general population. If you look at the statistics and sociological studies, most Americans are not well versed in religion, just as like they're not very knowledgeable about science or other stuff. Okay? Not that you have to be, okay? But I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or scared if you're sitting in the class and you're like, man, I was taught by nuns for 12 years. Well, that's not happening, but in the old days, or I was, taught by, every now and then we had a priest come into the class and teach us, and I don't remember this, or I've never heard this before. Well, that's fine. That's the way it's life, baby, You're 20-somethings, right? Some of you are still teenagers. You got a lot more road to hoe, right? You don't know everything now. You're still learning stuff. I'm still learning stuff. I'm 53. So don't be afraid. So there's even in your faith that you think you might know, even if you've read the Bible, and if you're Catholic, I know you probably have not. But a lot of Protestants don't read the Bible as much either. But even if you've read the Bible all the way through and think you know it, Mr. Dunn might teach you a thing or two. I already lost you, Mr. Clyde. You're already done with me. All right. Where are we? Oh, the books. So, the Bible, the catechism, a catechism, which I used this word before, catechism simply is a Greek word for instruction. Usually, in technical terms, it's instruction in a religious faith. So, nothing Christian about it, okay, but it's catechism. So the Catechism of the Catholic Church, here's the Bible that I was talking about. The Catechism, this is my version, yours will probably be different, but you want to, it's just basically everything the Catholic Church kind of certainly officially believes about the faith, not about everything, but just about its religious faith, set out in paragraph form, in an orderly form. Okay, you want the second edition specifically because there was a first edition when it came out in the 1990s, and they made a lot of changes to it. So you need the second edition. The first edition is very similar, but there were mistakes, there were things they added and changed. So the second edition is what you need, and hopefully you'll get the updated edition with the changed paragraph by, may he rest in peace, His Holiness Pope Francis, who just died last year. In one paragraph, where is it? Oh wait, here it is. We'll convert to it. The 2267 on the death penalty, and I just pasted. I'm not going to buy a whole new edition, but you should have, if you buy the book off of the bookstore, you'll have the, absolutely new edition with the new paragraph by the Pope. They also redid some of the translations from the liturgical text, the worship texts used from the Mass and stuff, because the previous translations from the 90s and from the 70s were absolutely terrible, and they revised them in the 2000s. So, yes. Okay, so you do need the second edition. So this is fine. And the Bible, okay? If you have these things already, some of you might have them, like the New American Bible Revised Edition, the second edition of the Catechism, then obviously you don't need to run out and get another one, yes? Okay. But, let's say, well, I'm not Catholic, but I do have a Bible. All right, that's fine. You don't necessarily have to go out and get another Bible. The problem is you won't be able to do some of the readings because there are additional books in the Old Testament of the Catholic Bible and the Eastern Orthodox Bibles. And even some of the books that are shared, like the book of Daniel or the book of Esther, are quite different. They're different recensions of those books, or different versions. Okay, and the Jews kind of accepted one version, and the Christians, who were also Jews at the beginning, accepted another. And that's just how it stands. All right. So you won't be reading the same text if you're reading from the King James, the New International Version, the Protestant version. So I would still say buy it, to at least supplement it so you have it. And it has all sorts of notes and things, and so you can get at least a Catholic point of view on how the Catholic Church looks at the Bible. Maybe that's of interest to you. Yeah. Read the syllabus. Very briefly, very quickly, and very briefly, these books are like any other books. If you don't know where something is, where do you look?
The library.
The library. Good answer, sir. Good answer. But let's say you actually have the book with you, Miss McIntyre. And, you want to find out, like, we have a reading from, like, the book of Nehemiah in the Bible. And I'm not saying you don't know, but let's say you don't know. Where would you look to find where it is? As with any book. It's not the index, no, but that's getting warmer. It's in the front of the book. It's not called an index. Yes. The table of contents. Or the chapters. All right, the Bible's no different. They give you the books in the front, the table of contents, telling you which books are in the Bible. If you don't know where the book is, you look throughout the books and it'll give you the page number. And there you go. So let's say I give you a reading from the book of Nehemiah. Oh, I see it's on page 479 in my Bible. And say the reading is from the book of Nehemiah, chapter 7. All right, well, each book of the Bible, I should say almost all of them, not all of them, but they're divided into sections, called chapters, called whatever, called sections. It doesn't matter, but they're numbered. Logical, right? first section is chapter 1, the second section is chapter 2. So you look for the numbers. Oh, I know I got to read the 7th one, so I find where it says chapter 7. All right, fine. But there are sentences in the section, you know? It's not just one sentence. There are a number of sentences in the chapter. So usually each or most of the sentences also have little numbers next to them to make it easier to find. So you don't have to go guessing, rooting around. All right, so it's chapter 7. I want you to read verses 21 to 30. Oh, okay. You start with a little 1 and you go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down. You find a little 21. Oh, so I start here and I end at the little 30. Easy, yes? Not a big mystery. That's the Bible. It's how you find something in the Bible and read it. Okay? Well, the catechism is actually even easier because every section is numbered. It has its own number. Sort of like over 2,000 sections. So I never remember how many there are actually. That's why I'm looking. 2,865. Okay? So that's easy. So if I say in the syllabus, read the catechism, sections 1,000 to 1,010. All right. You don't go for page numbers. You won't even find it. It's not 1,000 pages long. You're looking for section numbers, yes? So you look for section 1,000. Let's see what it is. Curiosity. Section 1,000. Oh, the resurrection of the dead. Ooh, yes. Interesting. And its connection to the Eucharist. Ooh, it's kind of like inside baseball, but okay. All right, but anyways, it's about the resurrection of Christ and how it applies to us, our bodily resurrections. Anyways, so yeah, do read the sections. You're not reading page numbers. And again, don't let this scare you. So if I'm like, read sections 400 to 480, does not mean you're reading 80 pages. Okay? You might be reading 20 pages, which you might still think is a lot, but that can't be helped. But, at least you're getting through it faster than if it were 80 pages, all right? But just know that, yes? The section numbers, not page numbers. What's going on here? Oh, this is mine. No, this fell out. Oh, yeah, the Church and Other Religions. I was taking notes on various section numbers that relate to that issue. Should tape this in here. Okay, so that's how that works. What's next? I'm going to go over 20 minutes, but whatever. Grading elements. Okay, we have tests in the course. There's just a final exam. There's no midterm. There's a cumulative final exam at the end of the course. Okay, and along the way, there are 4 quizzes, which will have 50 questions on each. Should have 50 questions on each. And basically, if you're taking the quizzes, you're taking the final exam. So be attentive to what's on the quizzes, okay? You won't get every question that will be on the final exam because I've made more questions than just 50 for each quiz. So, when it shuffles the questions and selects them that way. But, still be aware so you can at least study from what you encountered on the quiz. But it is cumulative. The quizzes are not cumulative. The quizzes just cover what we've covered in the course from quiz to quiz. Okay? So each quiz just covers what came before the quiz. Okay? The quizzes are not cumulative. And I will make sure since I have some extra time on my hands, got nothing better to do. I will try to go in and change questions because I've been using these questions for, I guess, a couple of years now. And, I'm sure maybe someone has them on their cell phone somewhere. So, I got to be a little bit sneaky, right? I got to know what's going on out there. People might have this stuff already out there. You see the questions already. So I got to change them. Same information, but just make them different questions. Anyways. So tests, there's just one paper. A minimum of 800 words, which is about 2 pages, because I don't want it to be that long, but I don't want it to be that short either. And yeah, you'll probably have to write more than that just to really answer the question if you want to get a good grade. But I'm giving at least a minimum that I want. And that's due when it's due. You can read the syllabus to see when it's due. I think it's due in a couple months. And it's reading the Gospel of Mark. It's the shortest of the Gospels. It's 16 chapters. I don't know if that makes any difference if you don't want to read it in the first place, but I want you to read it. Read the Gospel of Mark for the story of Jesus, and that's it. I guess I could also ask to read the Gospel of Matthew, which would supplement Mark well. But now keep it simple, just the Gospel of Mark, and then you'll write about it. And you can find the questions that I want you to address on Canvas. I think they're already there, so you can get a sense. You have to use books. Some books, source books from the library, in Keith's library. There's a reserve shelf. You should go to it. Take out at least 2 books from the reserve shelf. Make sure they're for the correct course. Check the spine. Make sure it's Religious Studies 147. I don't know by now. Anyways, but make sure it's for the right course. And you have to use them. You have to cite specifically enough that I can tell that you use the book, because I have copies of the books or access, so I can check, and I do check. Your references. But yeah, that's part of it. If you do not use any of the books from the library, it's just straight failure. I won't even, I'll still grade it eventually and give you some feedback on what you wrote. But if you can't even do that, then don't expect to get anything higher than an F of 59 on your paper. If you only use one of the books, then you're going to get a very low grade. You might even still fail if you do poorly writing it. If you don't know how to write, we've got Keith's Library. We've got Student Success Center. They have tutors. They have people you can ask questions to. You, of course, have the internet and can find stuff that will advise you about how to do a bibliography and stuff like that. If you don't know how, or you were taught and you forgot, okay? It's not my job to do those things. It's a Christian faith class, not English lit, not an English class, so I shouldn't have to be correcting grammar or spelling. But, as it turns out, Mr. Walker, I usually do. Just to make heads or tails of what someone is trying to tell me. Yes! Okay. And then class attendance. Class attendance is technically not a grading element, but it can be affected by whether you're here or not. Okay? Because if you're not here in class, you're not participating, or you're not doing the work, I expect you to be here. You might be, well, Dr. Dunn, I'm working 1 or 2 other jobs. Well, that's fine. This is your job. Actually, you're working 2 or 3 jobs. Okay, if you feel you need to do that, that's great. But this is not like an add-on to the work you're doing, making guacamole at Chipotle. I assume this is also your job. So I'm getting paid for. Okay, so class attendance can affect your grade. Okay, I already told you about that. Tests, assignments, I mentioned the assignments. The specifics for when the tests are, the dates are in the syllabus. So you'll know. Oh, I should mention this. You have a week to do each test or quiz, okay? For the quizzes, I put them out on a Friday, and you have until the next Friday, okay? Generally, there are no extensions. I'm giving you a week, I think that's pretty generous. I think it is. If you don't think it's generous, fine, but, I do. So, I understand there can be problems, but there will be penalties if there are problems, because there shouldn't be. And for the final exam, you have all of exam week to do it, okay? So that's for the tests. And the dates of when these tests will be put out for you are here in the syllabus. The date for when the paper's due, here in the syllabus. Also, the guidelines for writing the paper are here in the syllabus. I even give you a sample version of what your paper could or should look like if you want maximum points. So, yeah, I might seem harsh in grading, but when I'm telling you exactly, I'm trying to be helpful. All right, but, whatever. You decide if you want to do your own thing. Class participation. If you, show up, of course, then you can participate.
take notes as part of it. But mainly, I look for, do you do readings? Are you willing to do readings from the texts, the Bible and the Catechism, or read off of the PowerPoint? Do you ask questions and answer questions and stuff like that? More active participation. Yes, I do take into account if a person is here with the books. You should have the books with you. Okay, I bring them all every time, mostly. Shh. Anyways, I understand people forget, but I'm taking notes and paying attention. Yes, that's something. Okay, that's also participating. But if you want to know how I'm grading you, I lay more emphasis on people who are actively willing to do something. If that freaks you out, if you have some issue that you just don't want to be bothered, then fine. Tell me so I can avoid and I can understand and know. That also helps me in grading. When I look at the grading, I'm like, well, this person only said something twice in the course, that should be an F, really. But I know that the person has, the person's quiet or something, or is, So they tell me, Dr. Dunn, this really makes me uncomfortable. I don't like, okay, fine. I know that. Still doesn't mean you're going to get a great class participation grade, because I have to be fair and just to the other people who did stuff. But I have that understanding. You understand what I'm saying? It's there. I know what's going on. All right. It's not just a harsh, oh, you only did this, you get an F. Okay. I understand. And especially if you have accommodations and stuff like that, let me know. Well, you have to let me know. You're supposed to let me know. Give me a letter if you do. So class participation. So you don't have to participate, but it is part of the grade. It's 15%. And you'll be graded on how you do that. Your class participation, I do allow you to use computers in the course, as some of you have already assumed that I do, without having asked. But that's all right. I expect you to assume. So yeah, to take your notes on and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine. Just as long as you're paying attention, you're not on the internet and stuff. So sad. No one's gonna not do that. I walk around the class, not to spy on people, because I like to walk around the class. Okay. So I know people are on gambling sites and gaming sites and watching stuff, and you can have their phones out. I had one student who had a phone out watching some movie and something she was watching on her computer, her laptop. All right, I'm not gonna go crazy over it, but it might affect your class participation grade if you actively ignore me enough times. I might not say something, but if I keep noticing, it might screw up your class participation grade. And you read the syllabus to see what happens with that. Okay, you lower your, depending on how many times I note that this person was on his computer or her computer, not paying attention, not doing anything. Well, I should say not doing anything, but watching videos on YouTube or something. Then yeah, you might lower your class participation grade significantly. Class attendance also affects your class participation grade. They're related because you're not here. If you're not here, you can't do it. Okay? But it also affects in general. Okay? First thing to know, anyone who misses a month of the course, I'm not going to pass you. I'm not going to give you, I'll give you any sort of grade. You fail the course automatically. That's my policy. I'm not going to have something, does it happen? Yeah, it happens. I don't know why. Okay? But for some reason, people just leave. But it's not an online course. All right? It's not a hybrid course. It's an in-class course. Which is your job. I expect you to be here. Okay? So if you miss more than 7 classes, which is basically a month of the term, you should expect to get an F. And there are no exceptions to that. Okay? There are, like, if you have, like, I understand if you get into a car accident and you're laid up in the hospital for a couple months. All right, you might have to take it incomplete or something. But you might also have to withdraw because you can't complete and that's just life. I'm sorry. I didn't do that to you.
I don't wish it on you, but it does happen. All right? I didn't do it to you if it happens, okay? But that's my policy. You're absent for a month, more than a month of classes, you get an F. If you're I do, no absence is excused, okay? You should be here. And it makes it easier for the record taking, so there's no arguing back and forth about whether, well, it should be excused because I had the flu. Okay. But no, it should be excused because I missed the bus on the way here, or something, whatever. But nothing's excused, okay? However, to counterbalance that, because I do know that, yeah, you missed the bus or the train on the way here if you're commuting, okay? You get a flat tire, where you do get set, so obviously, I understand that. I give basically 2 weeks, allow 2 weeks, 4 classes throughout the semester, where I ignore them. That's it. You done with me already? Oh yeah, that's right. Have a good day, miss. I'll see you maybe, hopefully. Is this your bag? Is this yours or hers? Huh? That's it. Well, that's all right. So just so you know, so yeah, no absence is excused. That's basically for record keeping people. So again, don't freak out. All right. But I also say that because don't expect that just because you think you have a good reason to be absent, that I have to then excuse it. All right. Now you don't play that. Don't work like that with Maddie. So that's why I keep it simple. All right. I don't want to get into those arguments of back and forth and like. All right. So no absence. As I said, I give you leeway. 4 classes I totally ignore if you're absent. Use them wisely because you don't know when you're going to get the flu or something's going to happen during the semester. All right. Don't gobble them all up. Okay. Because it can affect you. After that, I start taking deductions for people who are absent beyond the 4. And yes, at the end of the course, I believe that mercy, as Scripture says, mercy triumphs over judgment, and the judgment is merciless to those who are merciless. So yeah, I'll take into account. Please send me an email. Let me know if something happens beyond those 4. You had to be absent again. You got sick again. Okay, fine. I understand. I'll take those into account. It doesn't mean I'll take all of them. All right. Certainly, if it's beyond 7, then I can't help you. I'm sticking to my policy. But let's say someone has 5 absences at the end of the term. I might say, okay, I know the person got the flu again or COVID or something like that. So I should count it, but I know I won't count it. That's my decision, all right? And usually I do that for just about everybody. I up it a little bit, from 4 to 5 or something like that, just to help people out because I know that stuff can go wrong. But be aware of that, okay? Again, that comes up on the student evaluations. The haters don't like me for it. I don't care. Well, I care. I care. I don't want anyone to do poorly in the course. I'm not doing this to harm you. Okay? But I am doing it best. The schedule is in the syllabus, so look at the schedule, follow the readings for the schedule. I'll try to stick to the schedule rigidly. That's not for you rigidly, it's for me rigidly, because as you can probably tell, I tend to blather. So check the schedule and see what you need to do for your readings for the next class meeting. Certainly read the syllabus. The conduct of the course, the whole section, conduct of the course, that's stuff, part of the syllabus that you can probably skim or ski read, or not read very much of, okay? It's just conduct of the course. The main thing to tell you that I've already told you about computers, okay, all right, because I know people need to use them. I know they're going to misuse them. That's just the nature of the beast. This in 2026. Yeah, it's been the nature of the beast ever since computers and laptops and tablets came out. Yeah, I understand, and I also understand if I forced you to use notebooks that people can still daydream. I mean, I can't imprison your mind. You can still just daydream for the next hour and 15 minutes. Okay, fine. Well, not fine, but I'm just not going to sleep over it. Okay? It's your money, your education. And And accommodations. If you do have a disability or think you do, a learning disability, okay, or something that you need help with, you do have to self-identify to the university. There's information about that in the syllabus, and that's not up to me. I'm not giving out accommodations. I get the accommodation I'm supposed to give you, okay, which tells me what I'm supposed to do for you, like give you extra time on a test or, extra, leeway and when to hand it in the sign or something like that. But you have to go and be identified as needing a disability accommodation. Breaking your leg, as I said, getting into a car crash and staying in the hospital for a couple months. Sorry, those count for anything, Dr. Dunn? No, they don't. Sorry, they're not disability accommodations. It needs to be a chronic condition identified by a doctor, a physician, not a doctor. Okay, I'll sympathize, I'll feel bad for you, I'll be pulling for you, but don't ask me to change the course for you. It's not going to happen. Or at least I'm not forced to. The accommodation, I have to, right? I have to accommodate. But I don't have to accommodate you if you're not going to have a car for the next month because it's in the shop, all right? Oh, well, you got to find some other way, I'm trying not to sound like a jerk, but sometimes you have to be the bad guy. All right, so that's the syllabus. Are there any questions? Anything? And what I told you, I would imagine there are still questions, but nothing? All right. If you don't like it or like me, that's fine. You can drop the course and find somebody else. I won't take offense. I'm not telling you to leave. It does give me less work. Did I say that out loud? Oh, that's it. All right, I already had it here on the PowerPoint. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's start with a little introduction. This is as much as I can get through. To Christianity, to the Christian faith. Just some little background information. Okay, this PowerPoint, as all the PowerPoints are on Canvas. Again, I would recommend it's to help you print them out. Use them to take your notes on, to guide you. Have them on your computer. You can follow along. You can annotate them, write on them, whatever. They're to help you. Yeah. Whalen? Whalen? No, I got it wrong. Where's Miss Whalen? Where's Miss Whalen? Sammy. You're Sammy, right? Sammy Whalen. All right. Okay, here's a picture I got of the where Christians are in the world and where they predominate. Okay, I'll get to it in a second. What is this course about in a nutshell? Which, I hope is kind of obvious from the title of the course, Christian Faith. It's about the Christ. Well, which Christ? Bar Kokhba? Shabbatai Zvi? Menachem Schneerson? Or a peasant from 2,000 years ago, a woodworker named Yeshua, Jesus. The Jews have had a number of Christs, people who either claimed to be or were claimed by their followers to be the Messiah, this king figure, king savior figure. Jesus was not the only one. But the Christian religion is based on the belief that this man, Jesus, from a little town called Nazareth, maybe from Nazareth, is the Messiah. But there are other Messianic Jews who are not Christian. I mentioned Menachem Schneerson, a bunch of Hasidic. Are they Hasids or Orthodox? No, I think they're Hasids. If you take world religions with me, has anyone taken world religions with me? Well, anyways, have you taken world religions? Anybody? You have, Mr. Clyde? Did you learn about Judaism? Hasidic Jews?
We learned about the different types, but not too much in depth.
Yeah. Hasidic Jews are all fragmented. They're very conservative religiously, very traditional, but also very mystical. But they're all fragmented according to which Rebbe you follow. And there's a group from New York City that follow Rebbe Menachem Schneerson, who is Moshiach to them. They think he's the Messiah. He was the Messiah. And he's going to come again. And he might have been kind of godlike. I've heard that story before. But they're Jews. They're complete. This is a group of Jews from 2,000 years ago accepted this man Jesus, a 1st century AD Palestinian Jew. I'll talk later in another class about AD and BC. I won't talk about it today. I'll talk about it maybe on Thursday. As I said, he was a craftsman. He was a woodworker and a religious, and somewhere along the line he became a religious teacher. And he was claimed to be this long-expected king savior called the Christ, or the Messiah of the Jews, the Jewish people, a royal figure who would come to save the Jews and reestablish their ancient kingdom. But some of his followers also thought he was God's son, which, as we'll learn later, could also be a title applied to the Messiah, because the king was seen as so close to God, like he was adopted by God, he was part of God's family in a way. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Jesus was God in the flesh, but that's not what these people were saying. They didn't mean it that way. Okay, they took this title and they meant it literally, like God was truly Jesus' father. He had no human father. And as we'll see, Jesus seemed to speak about himself that way as well, which is one of the reasons it kind of got him into trouble with other Jews, because that wasn't their view of God. So the Jewish religious leaders opposed him. We find a lot of opposition. Some followed him, but most of them seemed to not like Jesus. Jesus was not liked. He was disliked, in fact, for some of the things he thought about himself or that he was doing. This guy, Jesus of Nazareth. And so he didn't die as a famous man, Mr. Smith? No, don't tell me. Varys. No, don't tell me. Heisler? What's the first letter of your last name, sir? Oh, it's not Crawford. It's not Clyde. That's Cotillo. Sorry. Mr. Cotillo. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, he didn't die as some famous dude. Now, today, Jesus is famous. Well, maybe not so much. I think if you showed a picture of Jesus to a little kid and then showed the kid the picture of Ronald McDonald, I think we know, Mr. Celestin, which person the kid would know better. But, he's famous today, we think, for the most part, to a lot of people. He wasn't famous then. He died as a crook, a criminal. He was a criminal. He was killed for a crime. He was executed by the officials of the Roman Empire, handed over by the Jewish leadership to the Romans who were in charge, and hanged on a cross. And Christians, the early Christians didn't, but Christians kind of like glory in this. They show Jesus hung on the cross. There he is, right? Imagine if you had, Jesus died in the electric chair or something. Not many religious groups that show, if you had a religious group the leader of our group, Pastor Bob, well, what happened to him? Well, he got arrested, convicted in court, and they injected him lethally, laid him out and put poison in him and he died. Oh, okay. But we really think he was a great guy. Forget all the court case, forget all the testimony. He was a really great guy. Really a good guy. He just, was capitally punished. He got the death penalty for his crime. Does that sound like a good man to you? Would you think that was a good person, or would you think, Uh-oh, what did he do? Hmm. But that's how he died. I can't yell because it bothers people. Nevertheless, his followers proclaimed that even though he had died as a criminal, and he had been hanged on a cross and crucified, and was buried, okay, in some unmarked grave, right? He didn't even have a shrine from his followers. Just they dumped him in the closest grave they could find, um, probably because they didn't want them to desecrate his body and just throw it into a dump with other garbage. Um, he started appearing to people. Some of his followers proclaimed that they had seen him. And just like God's son, they didn't mean it. Now, seeing can mean a lot of things, Mr. Walker, right? Yeah. I mean, some of my students are doing psychology. I don't think anyone in here. I usually check your info just to get a feel for the room and try to tailor some of my discussion or my comments to people. I don't think I have any psychology students here, or even social workers, where you take a little bit of psychology. But yeah, they knew about hallucinations. They weren't stupid 2,000 years ago. They knew that, if you drank enough, vino, you might start seeing things or think you see things. And sometimes naturally it happens. Like I started seeing cats when I wake up at night. No, really. I was like, all of a sudden, a few months ago, I would wake up in the middle of the night and be looking. I'm like, I thought I saw one of my cats who are all black. Okay. But I saw this figure, definitely a cat like figure. I'm looking. No, that's her. And I reach out for her and I get nothing. I get air. I'm like, but she's right here. I can see her. So I told my shrink, who's a medical doctor who treats psychological. I have other psychological illnesses. This was not one of. This was a new one. This was a new one. I have not had hallucinations before that I know of, but and I distinctly could see it was a figure of a cat. But I knew it wasn't there. That's the weird thing. I knew it really wasn't there. But I'm like, I see this. Apparently, that's very common. I was worried. I'm like, could this be a side effect of one of the medications or something after a long time of taking it? Like, no, this is perfectly natural. Happens all the time. You couldn't remember. There's a Greek word for a nictus something or something. Or there are two different Greek words. It happens when people first wake up in the morning sometimes, but it also happens when they wake up intermittently when they're asleep at night. Perfectly normal. This never happened. Like, don't worry about it. Okay. It's perfectly normal. Okay? So half of you drop the course. But, yeah, if you drink a lot of alcohol or take a lot of drugs and stuff like that, which, no, I just drink my coffee, whatever, or mostly coffee. No, it's just coffee. It's just coffee. It's not anything more than stop it. No, it's just coffee. You can hallucinate. I knew that. So the fact that people were claiming I saw Jesus again. He's not dead. I saw him. That's not. It's like people have done studies, grief studies. Psychologists have done grief studies, and it's very interesting the amount of times that people who are grieving claim that they've seen their loved ones short periods of time after the death. It doesn't seem to persist for very long, but there's this feeling that the person is really there and they see it. Okay, it happens, but that's not what they were saying. They weren't. Some of them might have been saying that. Like I felt like Jesus was with me, and then poof, he was gone. Okay. Or I had a vision of Jesus glorified with God in heaven. Okay. But that's not what some of them were saying.
especially the closest ones. They were saying, no, he was physically here. He still had the wounds in his wrists and in his feet and in his body. He's in the marks on his head. But he was different. He was truly alive. It wasn't just a resuscitation. Okay? He wasn't resuscitated. He came back to a new form of life with his body. Okay? Oh, there we go. Called the resurrection. He rose again. Not he rose into heaven, which they could have claimed, Jesus was glorified, right? He was a good man, supposedly, killed unjustly, but God glorified him, right, Mr. Walker? God showed his approval by bringing Jesus up to heaven. And I had a vision of Jesus. That's not the resurrection. That's not what they were claiming. I saw him physically. I ate with him. I spoke with him again. And then eventually Jesus does go into glory. But this changes everything, because now this changes how they view Jesus from before. They might not, it's not clear that all of the apostles or followers of Jesus thought he was a divine being before. It's not clear that all of them thought he was the Christ before, or understood all the things he was saying. In fact, we know they did not understand all the things they were saying until the resurrection that changed everything. They thought he was a failure. Most of them were ashamed of him after the crucifixion. They thought, because the Messiah wasn't supposed to die. The Messiah was a king savior, right? He was supposed to ride in with glory with his sword, and kill all the enemies. Jesus didn't do any of that. In fact, he completely, look! So how can you believe in him anymore? I mean, if you're following like a cult leader, and that happened to your cult leader, the FBI shows up and they burn the place down and they arrest your cult leaders. Like, oh, well, I guess it's over. I guess he wasn't the second coming. Or your cult leader predicts something, like the world will end on the year 2022 or something like that. And it doesn't happen. Well, I guess, I guess Bob was not the guru of divine love or something. Thus came about, if you don't understand the resurrection, because Christianity is not a religion of the crucifixion. It's not a religion of the crucified one. It's a religion of the risen one. Okay? Even though you do see crosses all over the place. Okay? But if you go in, usually when you go into ancient churches, and you see this especially if you're Eastern Orthodox, like Russian Orthodox or whatever, the primary image is not Christ on the cross. It's Christ in glory on the back of the church, the risen Christ. Okay? Jesus has risen from the dead. And from that comes the largest religious movement on the planet. Maybe I'm not saying that Christianity wouldn't have still developed, but I think it would have been maybe a small sect within Judaism, of a small group like the Lubavitchers that I told you about, Menachem Schneerson. A small group of Jews who were dedicated to this guy, Yeshua, who got killed, and they thought he was the Messiah, and God glorified him, But he was buried, and he's dead, but, he's with God in heaven. So maybe it might have stayed as a little religion, but no, it becomes the largest religion on the planet. 2.26 billion people on earth claim to be followers of this man, Jesus. They claim he's the Messiah, the Christ. And you see the book that I get this from, which was it was published over 15 years ago. So I believe it's increased since then. But it's really hard to find concrete statistics on any of the world's religions, because I teach world religions as well, and I try to, find out, but, to track it down. So this is the best I can do from Johnson and Grimm's book, The World Religions and Figures, the two sociologists. And someone has made up a map to show you the density. So you can kind of see where most of the people who call themselves Christians are, all right? Throughout most of the world. Okay, you can see where the parts where most of the Christians are not. Asia, Northern Africa, the Middle East, which is part of Asia. But a lot through Europe, although there are some places like Czech Republic, it's kind of limited. North America, South America, the Central and Southern Africa, Australia, Oceania. Yeah. So, I mean, by far, Christianity is by far the largest of all the world's religions. If you're wondering, the next one would be Islam with 1.6 billion. So but still, that's a large, that's like almost a billion less, or hundreds of millions less. And after Islam comes Hinduism around 1 billion. That's only because, well, actually 700 million, excuse me. But that's only because I think that there are around 1 billion Hindus in India, of Indians. If you take world religions with me, you learn that Hinduism and the religion in the country are combined. Okay, to be Indian is to be Hindu. So yeah, so it's Christianity 2.26, then Islam, then Hinduism. And so it's, according to these numbers, Christianity is 1/3 of the world's population. So around 30 to 30, I'm done, I guess. 30% of the population, 33%, the global population. And Christianity is the majority religious population on almost every continent, from 75 to 90%. The only places where it's not, as I showed you just a moment ago, Asia, where it's 8%, rather small. We can forget Antarctica. Forget about Antarctica. And Africa, but even then, it's 48% in Africa. So it's almost 50-50, almost 48%. So it's close to 50% of the population of the continent of Africa claims to be Christian. So it's close, even there. There we go. So that's statistically how statistically the religion looks from a sociological standpoint. 1 second. All right. And I guess the rest of it I will talk about on Thursday. Yeah. Well. Talk about the rest of it on Thursday. I'll finish up introduction on Thursday according to the syllabus. God bless you all. Have a good day. You're welcome, miss. Have a good day. Have a good day, sir. Have a good day, sir. Have a good day, miss. Have a good day, sir. You too, miss. Mr. Smith? All right, good, sir. It's coming. Daniel. There you go. Have a good day. Have a good day, miss. Thank you. Yes, sir. Hold on a second. Let me just turn off my recorder so I don't violate any privacy.